Saigo Takamori, unable to take Kumamoto, led the remaining samurai on a 7-day march to Hideyoshi. The samurai had lost any form of strategy and were heavily demoralized from their defeat at the Battle of Tabarozaka, so they decided to dig in deep and wait for an imperial assault. The imperial army was also weakened by their casualties at Tabarozaka, so both the Satsuma forces and the imperial forces did not fight for about a month. After the imperials were able to recover, they continued their assault, forcing Saigo to retreat to Miyazaki. Saigo chose to leave behind several units of samurai in the hills to perform guerrilla attacks. On the 24th of July, the imperial assault forced Saigo to retreat from Myokonojo. Saigo was then forced to retreat from Nobioka. Saigo and his samurai were caught in a pincer movement when imperial forces landed north of the Satsuma in Ota, as well as in Saiki. The samurai put up a successful fight until they were able to break through the imperial encirclement. By August 17th, Saigo's rebel force, which began with anywhere from 20 to 30,000 samurai, was dwindled down to only 3,000 samurai. Not only that, but the Satsuma had lost most of their rifles and ammunition, and had lost all of their artillery, meaning that most of the remaining samurai would have to rely on their katanas. The remnants of the samurai chose to make a final stand on the slopes of Mount Anodaki. The imperial army quickly surrounded them. Yamagata, feeling confident that he could bring an end to the Satsuma rebellion in one last crushing swipe, sent in a large force which outnumbered the samurai 7-1. The samurai on the mountain either surrendered or committed seppuku, an ancient Japanese ritual method of suicide. On August 19th, Saigo managed to burn his private papers and army uniform. He then managed to sneak his way towards Kagoshima with the remnants of his samurai. Over the next several days, Saigo and the remnants of his force, consisting of 500 samurai, managed to reach Kagoshima on September 1st, seizing Mount Shiroyama. Imperial Army troops under the command of General Yamagata Aratoma and Marines under the command of Admiral Kawamura Sumiyoshi had Saigo outnumbered 60-1. Yamagata did not want to risk the samurai sneaking away yet again, so he ordered his men to dig in deep around Saigo's position. The men dug trenches and built walls and obstacles to trap the samurai. Yamagata's artillery, including 5 imperial warships in Kagoshima harbor, began bombarding the samurai's positions, which appeared to be occupied, disregarding friendly casualties. Saigo and his men held their positions with a handful of rifles and a few pieces of artillery they managed to find. Ammunition was extremely low for the samurai, so they melted down metal statues to produce bullets, and even used a carpenter's saw to tend to any injuries. Saigo received a letter from Yamagata offering surrender. The letter was dated September 1st and was drafted by Samatsu Kencho, a man who would go on to become quite popular in Japan. Naturally, Saigo rejected the offer of surrender, and so on September 24th, Yamagata ordered a full frontal assault after bombarding the samurai all night. 30,000 imperial troops attacked Saigo's position of only 500 samurai. The imperials opened fire on the Satsuma, who responded by charging with their katanas. The imperial lines were quickly disorganized by the highly skilled swordsmen. The samurai were able to slaughter many imperials who were not trained very well in close quarters combat. However, the sheer numbers of the imperial force was too much for the samurai. The imperials managed to eliminate the majority of the samurai force and mortally injure Saigo. The remnants of Satsuma pulled back to the end of the mountain. Beppu Shinsuke carried Saigo, who was mortally wounded in the femoral artery and stomach, downhill to a location where he could end his life. Saigo commits seppuku, and Beppu acted as kaishakunin, whose job is to behead the individual committing seppuku. Beppu hid Saigo's head to prevent the imperials from finding it and mocking Saigo. Beppu and the last 40 samurai then drew their swords and charged downhill towards the imperial lines, and were ultimately cut down. Their deaths brought an end to the Satsuma Rebellion and the death of the samurai. The Satsuma Rebellion was very costly for the imperial government, so much so that it forced Japan off the gold standard and forced the government to print paper currency. The rebellion brought an end to the samurai class for good, and Saigo was looked upon as a tragic hero by the Japanese people. On February 22, 1889, Saigo was posthumously pardoned by Emperor Meiji himself. The sacrifice made by Saigo Takamori and his samurai is a perfect example of true samurai honor.